Gentlemen, Your Excellencies, members of the Commonwealth family, welcome to the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Trade and Investment Summit 2022. My name is Lanre Akinola. I'm going to be moderating for the day, and a couple of very quick pieces of housekeeping before we get into formal proceedings. The nearest fire exit is to the right of the room if you're facing the stage. There's stairs down there. I've been told that there are no fire drills planned today, so if it does go off, it's for real. And bathrooms and cloakroom are downstairs by the entrance when you came in. That's it for now. Time is against us, so without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage our speakers for the opening ceremony, starting with Clare Akamanzi, the Chief Executive Officer of the Rwanda Development Board. The Right Honourable, yes, go for it. The Right Honourable John Glen, who is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury of the UK Government. The Honourable Musalia Mudavadi, who is Prime Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya. Alderman Nicholas Lyons, the Lord Mayor of the City of London. And last but by no means least, Lord Marland of Odstock, who is the Chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council.
Great to see you all, and welcome friends. There is someone in this room who I haven't met. Where is he? Over there, I can see him. The rest of you I've known for quite a long time, and I'm thrilled that you're all here. And no jokes about me behind my back. I know what you're like, you lot. You're a bit of an unruly bunch. But from all over the world, 31 countries are represented here, which is an amazing achievement. We are streaming almost certainly, if it's the same as last year, to 250,000 people. So careful what you say, because you may be picked up on streaming somewhere in Vanuatu, perhaps, where indeed we have the Prime Minister of Vanuatu joining us tomorrow, which is an amazing distance that he's had to travel. We've got ministers, we've got the most senior business people across the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth family is alive and well, which is unbelievable. We could have had 700 people here today, but unfortunately, it's a very small house. You've got, Lord Mayor, that we couldn't fit them all in. So I blame you for the inadequacy of the size of audience that we're used to speaking to, aren't we, Clare? In Rwanda, Clare had 1,700 people that she'd fitted into her enormous tent in Kigali, and what an amazing event it was. And we're thrilled to have Clare here, who ran that whole event and put it together. It was a fantastic achievement. And Lord Mayor, I want to thank you for allowing us into your home. That poor old chap, he couldn't come down the normal way, you know, with gilded corridor that he comes down to. He had to go out the back door because we'd shut off several of the rooms in preparation for this event, and the security, because we've got a minister from the government here, so security had to be really tight to protect him. I bet this lot are probably from Cameroon. They're always late. Come on in, come and sit down. There we are. They're all finding their priority seats. But Lord Mayor, I just want to make one plea. When we put an event like this on again, and my team are working tirelessly over the weekend in the Guildhall, can you put the heating on? Because for 2 days they were in woolly hats, scarves, fur coats, or not real fur obviously, fur coats, sitting in the Guildhall working for this. Can you believe it? They turn the heating off in the Guildhall weekends. Such is the austerity at the moment. And I also want to thank my friend John Glen for coming and seeing and speaking to us today. He has the great distinction not only of being Cabinet Secretary, but I'm also his president of his association, so he tends to behave himself for once when I'm around, in case I send a message back to his constituency. And Excellency, so good to see you flying over from Nairobi, especially for this great event. Cabinet Secretary, Chief Minister, etc. What better person to have speaking on our behalf? Now, where's Frank Hester? Are you here? Frank, have you made it? Are you out having a cigarette? Frank? No, Frank is not here yet, but I want to thank him, TPP, one of our lead partners here today, for their support on this event. Tingo, anyone from Tingo here yet? No, they're not interested yet. They're warming up. I want to thank them, and I also want to thank Jim Ovia, who probably hasn't arrived yet. Jim, are you here? No, Jim, you're not here yet, for the support. They're coming to speak later in the occasion for this great event. And I'd also, my final thank you is to the Gabonese who have joined the Commonwealth only in June and have hit the road running. They are here supporting in very big quantities and have really put their shoulders to the wheel of the Commonwealth, trying to get involved at the very beginning. So there's a very big Gabonese delegation. Now, for a very small organisation, we, over the last few years, as you know, have expanded our network. We don't believe that we want to be just in the United Kingdom. We feel we've got to be representing you abroad, and this is gaining great pace, as you will hear in a minute. Already, as most of you will know, we have John Appiah and Ben Gobba. Where are you, John, Ben? Are you here? No, not here yet. Gosh, where are they? All asleep, these people. I thought they were working for us. They are represented in Ghana, work for our office in Ghana. Obina, you're probably still in bed. There he is, there's the man. Obina is not in bed, I can confirm it. Obina, who has done so brilliantly for us in Nigeria. Jared, I've seen you earlier. There's Jared here. Peralta, who is our man in Gibraltar. Phyllis Muscat, who ran CHOGM in Malta, is our great representative. Stand up, Phyllis, if you can. Come on, Phyllis, there we are. Phyllis, give her a round of applause, everybody. She ran the most brilliant CHOGM in Malta and has been on our board and looks after those who go to Malta. Nero Cook, our friend from Sri Lanka. Come on, Nero. Stand up if you can. There he is. He had a big night last night watching the football. And where's Sam? Sam, are you here? Sam Cohen, who is recently, many of you know, was our former chief executive before she went off to a reign of terror working in number 10 for Boris. She has now returned as our envoy to Australasia, and particular reference there to Samoa, who are going to be next chair in office of the Commonwealth next June. So Sam has joined us recently. And I'm glad to say that in February I'm going to open our new office in Kenya, sponsored of course by James Mwangi. And James, you're not here yet probably. And Joy, are you here? Not yet, they'll be here later. And then in Singapore, I go in April to open a new office there. So our outreach is expanding the whole time. And I want to thank particularly our team in country for everything they do. You must use them. I don't want them lying in bed in the morning. I want them working fully for the benefit of you, the Commonwealth. And I just want to add the last office we've opened, which I did, we're actually officially doing it today, but I had a most marvelous visit to the Cameroon, and my friend Auguste Mappe has allowed us to use Sham. Where are you, Sham? There he is. Sham, who is now our man in Gabon and Cameroon. So brilliant what you've done. This event pulls together us all in the most desperate economic times. We're suffering in this country as John tries to wrestle with the economic problems that we've inherited in a post-COVID world. And this is, of course, the same the world over. So trade, business, investment are absolutely critical to the future. And as we know, the Commonwealth has 60% of its population are under 30 years old. So we in this room have a huge responsibility to that generation to leave the world that we're in a better place for them. So the challenge and task within this economic environment that we are operating in is huge. So that's why these events are so important, that the network that we've established and that you've established with the Commonwealth is so vital to the future of generations and also the country that you're living in at the moment. So I want to thank you all for putting your shoulders to the wheel to make that happen. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank you for the privilege that it has been for me and my brilliant team to represent you and work with you and help in these particular events. So let the business begin. And a man, of course, who needs no introduction, but our host and benefactor of these 2 days, Nick Lyons.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Marland, and Your Excellencies, Minister, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to have you here at the Mansion House for this meeting of the Commonwealth nations. As Lord Marland has mentioned, my name is Nicholas Lyons. I'm the 694th Lord Mayor of the City of London, and the Mansion House is indeed my home for this year, and I don't know whether or not, therefore, I'm working from home for the year or sleeping in the office, but it's pretty full time. I want to begin by thanking Lord Marland and the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council for bringing us together this first time in-person Commonwealth Trade and Investment Summit. It is absolutely marvellous to be able to be spending time together. And let me also just take this opportunity to congratulate the Minister, John Glen, on his recent appointment as Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He has been an outstanding economic Secretary to the Treasury for over 4 years and is exceptionally well informed about the City of London and its priorities. And John, we take great comfort from seeing you as Chief Economic Secretary. Now, the City of London represents, of course, only a small geographic area, just 1 square mile, but is paradoxically a huge contributor to the UK's economy. And we're very proud indeed to be a founding member of CWEIC and to be taking part in this discussion of how the Commonwealth network can lead our global economic recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, we meet at the end of what has been by any measure an extraordinary year for the Commonwealth. The world has been witness to violent conflict in Ukraine and many other parts of the world. Families in many countries are struggling to cope with access to necessities like fuel and food, and having to face steeply rising costs. Devastating floods, droughts, and wildfires have highlighted that action on climate change cannot be delayed for a second longer. All these issues have exposed some vulnerabilities in our economies, global trading and investment systems, and existing models of production and consumption, and indeed storage capacity. Against this backdrop, in September, we mourned the loss of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who had devoted her life to the service of this family of nations. And we welcomed a new leader in King Charles III. We came together for the joyous Commonwealth Games in Birmingham and the heads of government meeting in Kigali, and Gabon and Togo joined the family. So the year 2022 will go down in history as a time of great change and great challenge for the Commonwealth. Yet we meet today not to lament the tricky hand we've been dealt, but to plan our next moves together. United by our rich history, shared values, legal systems and business practices, a common language, and so much more. The Commonwealth has a unique convening power, huge global influence, and, to put it simply, it's a great place to do business. The Commonwealth advantage means that investment is 27% higher between Commonwealth countries, and bilateral trading costs are on average a fifth lower. So in the face of these knotty issues, we must leverage that advantage and make the Commonwealth the face of our global economic recovery. And at the risk of sounding a little like Pollyanna, we do have a chance to seize the opportunities that challenges like climate change present, the application of new technology, new investment opportunities, and new jobs and skills for our people. And I'm sure Lord Marland and others will say more on this topic, so I want to speak just briefly about how, with a unique convening power and leverage of its own, the city will support the Commonwealth's work. From providing capital for infrastructure and innovation, to enhancing trade in services, providing independent legal services, and sharing our expertise in areas like insurance and green finance. As Europe's leading financial hub, the Square Mile has a huge role to play in helping Commonwealth nations face down the global problems I spoke of earlier. And as an international ambassador for the UK's financial and professional services abroad, I will spend about a third of my year on the road. During those travels, which will take in several Commonwealth nations, I'll be highlighting opportunities for trade and investment, and strengthening the ties between the Square Mile and our allies. As I mentioned, London is a global leader in green finance, which is essential to so much of the Commonwealth's agenda. So at the halfway point between COP27 and COP28 in May of 2023, I will host the Net Zero Delivery Summit at Mansion House, which will maintain momentum generated by COP27 for financial and professional services to deliver on their promises for reductions in carbon emissions. And while continuing the great work of my predecessors, Sir William Russell and Vincent Keaveney, I am keen to cover new ground through my mayoral theme, Financing Our Future. Now, at the Lord Mayor's banquet last week, I spoke of the immediate need to get people and businesses through this tricky economic period. But I also emphasized the need for a longer-term plan to stimulate growth. Successive governments haven't done enough to update the UK's national infrastructure and develop renewable energy supply and storage. We need to see long-term investment from the government and the right environment for the private sector to invest too. Reforms to Solvency II are a step in the right direction. But I also believe we need a private sector UK growth fund to invest in long-term asset classes, mobilizing private savings and pension funds to support the growth economy, investment in green technology and renewables, and ultimately help the Commonwealth meet its ambitions too. Now, the UK can learn a lot from Commonwealth partners like Australia and Canada in this area, with their state pension funds and superannuation schemes, which have been so successful in their investments in high growth and high return assets. And I want to engage with them over the course of the year. So let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen. It's a long-held tradition that the city hosts incoming heads of state with a banquet at Guildhall during a state visit. Yet, as we welcomed South African President Cyril Ramaphosa during the first state visit of King Charles's reign last month, and indeed the first state visit for 5 years, that practice seemed to adopt a new significance, underscoring the city's role as an active participant, not a passive bystander, in this new era for the Commonwealth. An era where the Commonwealth advantage is leveraged to tackle huge global disadvantages and secure a brighter future for all our people. Thank you again for being here today. I am sure you will have an interesting and rewarding, productive summit, and I look forward to seeing many of you for dinner tonight. Thank you.
John, please.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you to Jonathan for your kind introduction and to the Lord Mayor for his kind words. And I certainly take on the challenge of how to create deeper pools of long-term risk capital in the UK. I think the institutional inertia that exists within the city needs to be challenged, as well as the government response. But it is a great pleasure to be here to speak about how we take on the changes and challenges that lie ahead, from health and technology to the environment, food security and finance. And it's wonderful to have the opportunity to once again celebrate the existence of the Commonwealth itself. 1/3 of the planet's population, with 60% of them under the age of 30, a collection of much valued trading partners for this country, representing almost 10% of our total trade with the world. 56 independent and equal countries working together for prosperity, democracy and peace. What the Commonwealth Charter aptly calls a compelling force for good. Now, the sheer size of the market and the diversity that we together possess leads me to the conclusion that doing so is not just a challenge, but a marvellous opportunity. And I think that seizing these opportunities are also part of the solution to the other challenges the UK and the Commonwealth nations face at this time. From strengthening energy security, to reducing energy bills, to boosting economic growth. We have all seen that in the wake of Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, energy prices have risen across the world. We know that the nearly 2.5 billion people that live in the Commonwealth have struggled with rising prices as inflation rises off the back of the war and the pandemic. And of course, we are all dealing with the awful legacies of COVID. In the UK, inflation has reached figures not seen in 40 years, but which you will recognise in your own countries have such a corrosive effect. Interest rates, as in the US and the continent of Europe, have risen to counter it, and growth forecasts have fallen. The Bank of England has addressed the challenge, and our fiscal policy is now working hand in hand with monetary policy to bring down prices and bring about stability. And as a result of the actions taken by the government I represent, government borrowing has fallen. The pound has strengthened, and the lower interest rates generated by the government's actions are already benefiting our economy and sound public finances. Through these actions, we move past recovery and set ourselves up for growth, which is, as has been said, the crucial ingredient in how we will all deliver for our people domestically, but also how we deliver for mankind internationally. Because we need a healthy, thriving economy to fight climate change, to defend democracy, to tackle food insecurity and global health. These are not issues that any single nation can deal with alone. Now, much has been made in recent years about globalization going into reverse. But my message to you today is that to succeed, we must work together. And one of the most obvious ways to increase global prosperity is by increasing trade. And one of the most obvious ways to increase trade is to make it cheaper. Already, it is on average 21% cheaper to trade across the Commonwealth than outside it. It explains why, in 2020, the Commonwealth accounted for 9.4% of the UK's total trade, 9.8% of UK exports, and 8.9% of UK imports. That's a huge amount, but I want to see these numbers increase. Having left the institutional framework of the European Union, we have flexibilities today to create customised approaches to trade that will benefit not just the United Kingdom, but all of the Commonwealth. We're already building long-term partnerships with Australia and New Zealand, and negotiations are underway for similar free trade agreements with Canada and India. Work is also underway to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, connecting the British economy to some of the world's other most dynamic economies, including our valued Commonwealth partners, such as Malaysia and Singapore. In fact, of the 55 other Commonwealth members, we have trade agreements with 33, and an additional 16 qualify for preferential access to the UK under the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, giving them significant benefits, including new preferential import tariffs on foodstuffs and other items. And of course, we continue to strengthen our bilateral trading relations with partners across the Indo-Pacific, South Asia, Middle East, Africa, the Americas, and Europe. And for our part in the UK, our goal is nothing less than for this country to be the most exciting and dynamic place in the world for you to do business. The UK is already one of the most open economies in the world, and the top destinations for foreign direct investment in Europe, with £1.9 trillion in FDI stock in 2020. This is a huge benefit because it provides capital to support business growth and can introduce new ideas, technology and knowledge that can generate further spillover benefits for domestic businesses. But why have we been able to attract so much of it? We're home to world-leading industries from creative sectors to life sciences and, of course, much cherished financial services here in the City of London. We've got modern and agile regulation and the potential to be even more innovative outside of the EU. Yes, the corporation tax rate will rise from 19% to 25% in a few months in April 2023, but it is still the lowest rate of the G7. We're consistently ranked in the top 10 of globally respected investment indices, with a highly skilled workforce, world-leading research institutions, a highly regarded and stable legal system, and are home to the global financial centre, the City of London. More specifically, the UK's international financial reach continues to be unmatched. In 2020, against the backdrop of that challenging year, the UK's financial services trade surplus increased by 8% year on year to £63 billion. We're capturing the biggest share of international bank lending and borrowing, demonstrating our global connectivity and flow of capital, which of course benefits the Commonwealth. Our market for international bonds is the largest in the world, proving our international reach. And we're embracing new technology in financial services, tearing down barriers and welcoming fintech companies that want to start up and scale up. And its approach is bearing fruit. Almost half of the fintech unicorns in Europe are based here in the United Kingdom. But there is never room for complacency, and we can't rest on our laurels. And as our Prime Minister has said, to have a successful, dynamic and growing economy, we need to invest in capital, people and ideas. So first, capital. We're spending billions on our economic and digital infrastructure to connect people and industries. And at our autumn statement just 2.5 weeks ago, we protected those capital budgets and recommitted to building nuclear plant Sizewell C, to rail lines across the country, new hospitals and gigabit broadband rollout, which is progressing well. It's all part and parcel of how we build an inclusive economy in which everyone can benefit. Second, people. We're investing billions on education from early years right up to university in search of the most educated and skilled population in the world, because businesses cannot thrive without the people and skills that they need. Now, in the United Kingdom, 80% of our 2030 workforce are already in work. So we're doing more to support people throughout their lives to retrain and upskill in the sectors of the future. We're investing billions more in adult skills and technical training. Now, some of you will face similar challenges, while others have younger populations. But whatever your situation, we must all agree that investment in education is investment in the long-term success of an economy and for the long-term success of our Commonwealth and its ability to tackle problems. But we would never claim to have a monopoly on talent in this country. And that's why we're making our visa system for international talent the most competitive and accessible in the world, so that people from the Commonwealth can study or work in the United Kingdom and use that experience to the benefit of their home country. And I'm delighted that Commonwealth countries represented 60% of work and student visas issued over the last year. And that brings me to the last category of ideas. The UK is proud to welcome students from the Commonwealth to our universities year in, year out. With less than 1% of the world's population, we have 3 of the world's top 10 universities and want you to feel the benefits of their research and tuition. But we also need to turn ideas into companies, products and services that can change the world. As I mentioned, I'm proud that we have more tech unicorns in the UK than any other country bar China and the US. And by the way, we're coming for them too. I believe we've earned our seat at the table of science and technology superpowers. But again, we can always do more on this front. By increasing investment in R&D to £20 billion by 2024-25, as part of our mission to cement the United Kingdom as the science superpower. We're already a global leader in renewable energy, and last year nearly 40% of our electricity came from offshore wind, solar, and other renewable sources. And since we came into office in 2010, our renewable energy production grew faster than any other large country in Europe. But we now want to go further with a major acceleration of homegrown technologies like offshore wind, carbon capture and storage, and above all, nuclear. In doing so, we benefit the health of the planet alongside the health of our economy. It will deliver new jobs, industries, and export opportunities, and secure the clean, affordable energy we need to power our future economy and reach net zero. So, ladies and gentlemen, the health of the planet, like so many other issues we are talking about today, pose profound challenges for us all. It is our collective duty to look at the problems of today in the eyes and find credible solutions as quickly as possible. We have been through a lot in the past few years, but our actions have not forced the issues that lie ahead to take a holiday. It will not be enough to recover from the pandemic, however hard that road has been. We must look to the future and to how we will put in place those strategies to grow, flourish, and prosper. It may not be easy, but as the late Queen Elizabeth II said, when nations come together in common cause, there is always room for hope. I believe that our Commonwealth is more than a spring of hope. It is a family of nations, and I have no doubt that we will achieve what we have set our minds to. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you here this morning.
Well, it's great relief to me to see that our principal sponsor has at last arrived, Jim Ovia from Zenith Bank. I know you like to miss my speeches, Jim. It's a well-known trait, but we're so glad you've made it of course, quoted here on the London Stock Exchange, and the most amazing bank in Nigeria. We're now going to hear from Clare Akamanzi, who ran CHOGM in Kigali, chair in office of the Commonwealth at the moment. Clare, so pleased that you could join us.
Thank you very much, Lord Marland of Odstock and Chairman of CWEIC, Mr. Alderman Nicholas Lyons, Lord Mayor of City of London, very pleased to be in the city, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya and a good neighbor in the East African community, the Honorable John Glen, MP, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, UK government. First of all, Lord Mayor, I'm very pleased to be part of this discussion this morning. Initially, I think we were expecting the Minister of Trade and Industry from Rwanda, who is just arriving at the airport and making his way here. But it might as well have happened that way, because if he had made it, this panel would not have met the requirements of the standards in Rwanda on account of gender balance. So let me say again that it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you for this Trade and Investment Summit 2022. Just a few months ago, and as many have said, we wrapped up a very successful Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Kigali. More specifically, together with the CWEC, we co-hosted the Commonwealth Business Forum, and I see many faces in the room that participated in the Kigali Summit as well. But I believe that it's a great opportunity today to reflect back and remind ourselves of the commitments and the discussions and the undertakings that we made at the Commonwealth Business Forum. And specifically, the discussions around taking advantage of the Commonwealth advantage in matters pertaining to trade and investment. And many of the speakers have already talked about the Commonwealth advantage. And so what is it? What is the Commonwealth advantage? And what does it mean for Commonwealth member states in terms of trade and investment? These have been discussed by the previous speakers, but allow me to speak briefly on this advantage through the Commonwealth connectivity agenda for trade and investment, and what it means for member states, especially those in the African continent. As perhaps mentioned earlier, the Commonwealth connectivity agenda's main purpose is to provide an approach for members to boost trade and investment across the Commonwealth, in the process grow intra-Commonwealth trade to about $2 trillion by 2030. That's a big task ahead of us. This agenda will create a platform to facilitate dialogue, networking, and collaboration within the member states. If the past 2 years have taught us anything, it is that the world is a global village that is more interconnected than we could ever imagine. The pandemic brought the world to its knees, and it was clear that one major issue can affect each and every country in a similar way, regardless of size or demographics. This is why I strongly believe that a common point joint strategy can mobilize and stabilize the already shaken global economy and create opportunities to indeed grow intra-Commonwealth trade exponentially. And on our part, as chair in office, Rwanda will do its part to connect and to bring the Commonwealth member states together on different aspects of this strategy. But let me also say that for the African continent in particular, implementing this dream that we've had, that our forefathers had, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, is very crucial. It's not only a trade bloc, but it is the aspirations that the African youth and the African people in general have been looking for, to create prosperity through trade and investment. As you all know, the goal is that we shall reach 0% of tariffs within the African continent, up to 97% of the products that are traded on the continent by 2035. It's a big ambition, but the good news is that the trial pilot phase of 7 countries trading within the African Continental Free Trade Area happened, and Rwanda was very pleased to be one of the 7 countries that piloted the Intercontinental Free Trade Area. The most important thing is that it has started, it is working, it's our goal to grow it. We believe that a very successful Continental Free Trade Area will also position the African continent to competitively participate in intra-Commonwealth trade as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk briefly about Rwanda. Rwanda's story of today is consistent with its name. Rwanda comes from a local verb, which is kwanda. This word means borderless. At the center of this meaning is the aspiration to bring the world to Rwanda and to take Rwanda to the world, just like we intend to bring the Commonwealth countries together. Every day, this informs our investment and economic policy. We are an open country, we are open for business, and we mean business. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why, as I come to the end of my speech today, I want to answer 3 questions that are always on the minds of business people looking for where to expand to. Why Rwanda? Why should they invest in Rwanda? Second, but what should they do in Rwanda? What should they invest in Rwanda? And the third one is how? Where do I start? And how do I get to Rwanda? So first, why Rwanda? Because like many of you business people in this room, Rwanda believes in thinking big against the odds. Rwanda has emerged from a tragic history of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, where more than 1 million lives were lost, the entire economy ruined, infrastructure dilapidated. Our country was a complete restart in 1994. Today, however, in 2022, this is our answer to your question, why Rwanda? Because you can grow with Rwanda. With a 10-year average of economic growth rate, 7% pre-pandemic, Rwanda was one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. In 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, we grew at 9.5%. And the World Bank at the time named Rwanda the fastest growing on the African continent. This year, as we recover from the pandemic, the African Development Bank projects a 6.9% growth for Rwanda. But we know that the journey to recovery is still very difficult ahead, not only recovering from the pandemic, but also tackling the very high inflation rates that many of the previous speakers have talked about, which is also a real challenge that Rwanda is dealing with today. But it's also easy to do business in Rwanda. The World Bank named Rwanda the second easiest on the African continent, only after Mauritius. And in the world, we rank 38th in the ease of doing business. And so we believe that continuing to make Rwanda competitive and easy for business is one way that we shall tackle the economic challenges that we have ahead and secure long-term growth. Rwanda has automated its business processes. Citizens get all their civil documentations online, such as birth certificates, driver's licenses, passports, IDs, land titles, among others, through our citizens portal called Urembo. You can also register your business in just 6 hours, online, free of charge, anywhere in the world, including here in the City of London. Rwanda is safe. It ranked the 6th safest country in the world by Nambeo, and one of the least corrupt on the continent. According to the Global Corruption Perception Index, Rwanda ranks the 3rd least corrupt country in Africa, only after Botswana and Mauritius. So in a nutshell, why Rwanda? Because it's fast growing, it's easy, it's safe, and it's welcoming to businesses. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now to the second question. What do we do in Rwanda? We say first, just visit Rwanda. This is the message we carry on the sleeves of your favorite football club in the Premier League, Arsenal, right? We want you to experience our tourism, attend conferences in Rwanda, enjoy the sports partnerships that we have, including with the NBA for the African Basketball League. And there, we expect you to not just visit Rwanda, but also get to know Rwanda better. Secondly, we also want you to start in Rwanda as you think about investing in the African continent. We have built our economy as a proof of concept country. Bring your innovations, bring your ideas, and together let's build a laboratory in our country where if you succeed, you can expand to the rest of the African continent. Many companies are already doing this. One example is a company that started commercial drone delivery of blood across hospitals in Rwanda called Zipline. Not only did they prove their technology in Rwanda with us, but they've now expanded to a number of countries in Africa, including the United States, where they originally came from. We also wanted to bring your funds and invest in our financial center. We've built a Kigali International Financial Center that is looking at a gateway to invest across the African continent. And here, we're very pleased that as we're developing our International Financial Center idea, we worked very closely with Jersey that really mentored our financial center, building on what has been done here in the UK. Lastly, we would like you to invest in Rwanda. When you visit Rwanda and you start in Rwanda for the African continent, we also have a number of opportunities that you can invest in Rwanda, from IT, health, education, mining, manufacturing, including in assembling of some of the new areas that we've seen recently, like assembling of vehicles, such as what VW has done recently in Rwanda. We're also promoting investments in agribusiness, in horticulture, and production of food, such as cereals. We have recently updated our investment law and added very targeted and very sector-specific fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. And we're very pleased to spend today and tomorrow talking to you specifically on some of the sectors that you're interested in and some of the new incentives that have been provided for the sector in the last investment code that was enacted in 2021. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me finish with perhaps what's the last question in your mind. How do I go about it? Where do I start if I want to invest in Rwanda and if I want to invest in Africa? Getting to Rwanda could never be easier. All citizens of the world, irrespective of where you come from, get visas on arrival at a minimum. You just get on a plane, come to Rwanda, show up, and you'll get a visa on arrival. It's even easier for you if you're a member of the Commonwealth or a member of La Francophonie or the African Union. It's free of charge to get a visa when you come to Rwanda. Our national carrier, Rwandair, together with other international airlines, connects Rwanda directly to about 30 destinations, majority in Africa, but also we have a direct flight from London to Kigali, should you wish to go to Rwanda. Now you can get to Rwanda, you can get a visa, you can fly to Rwanda. Where do you start from? This is where I come in. I lead the Rwanda Development Board, the organization that is privileged to be your facilitator when you decide to invest in Rwanda. We run a one-stop center. We coordinate all your interactions with the government of Rwanda. We negotiate and structure investment deals on behalf of the government of Rwanda. We also administer the tax incentives that you qualify for as a country, all in one building under one roof. So you're most welcome to consider investing in Rwanda. And so let me finish now, ladies and gentlemen, back to the question, why Rwanda? Why the Commonwealth? I hope that you'll agree with me that the answer to that question is why not? Thank you.
Well done, Clare. A brilliant speech and 6.9% growth. I mean, we'd die for that in this country, John, wouldn't we? Rwanda is a most fantastic place. And of course, you've got a great cricket ground, which you didn't mention, which is absolutely brilliant. I had the pleasure of visiting when I was out there. Kigali is a most delightful place. Anyway, so is Nairobi, Excellency. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Chrysostom Gabatsinzi, who is Minister of Trade and Secretary. Well, you can tell us what you are, Jean Chrysostom. You're far better than I am. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us from your neighbours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Lord Marland of Odstock, Lord Mayor, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Madam Clare from Rwanda, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and heads of delegations. Good morning. In Kenya, we say in Kiswahili, habari zenu. There you are. I've got an answer. Thank you. I am Mr. Musalia Mudavadi. I am the Prime Cabinet Secretary in Kenya. We've just come out of an election, and there was a change of government. A new administration is in place, led by Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And on December 25th, the government will be celebrating its first 100 days in power, coinciding with Christmas. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to, first of all, join myself in this very noble cause of having a conversation about the Commonwealth and how we can enhance trade and investment collectively as a team. And a few good points have been made here. I hope you don't tire if we do repeat some of them or re-emphasize some of them, because I think they're all important. So before I tell you a little bit about Kenya, let me just highlight one or two things on the Commonwealth scope. Clearly, it has come out that in the last 3 years, more than ever before, we have seen serious challenges. The COVID pandemic has been talked about. And then, of course, we are seeing very many challenges, including the most recent challenge of the war in Ukraine. And this has devastated global value chains and further slowing down economic recovery. And, of course, we are increasing the negative effects of climate change that we are now all experiencing, with consequential challenges on food security, etc. Now, if I just talk about the war in Ukraine, and I want to talk about it in the context that in the Horn of Africa, we are experiencing the worst drought we have had in the last 40 years. So, what happens when the war in Ukraine persists? It definitely causes a major disruption in the supply chain across the country, across the globe. We know very well that food supplies, fertilizer supplies, which are very critical for farmers, have been seriously disrupted. And clearly, this brings us to the question that we, as a global community, must continue to do even more to make sure that such challenges or such adventures are completely eliminated, so that the disruptions we are seeing and the consequential impact on many communities can be mitigated. Now, the second issue, let's just have a quick glimpse at the quantum of trade. Commonwealth's global exports of goods and services stood at $3.75 trillion US dollars, representing about 15% of the world trade. The value of intra-Commonwealth trade in goods and services stood at $673 billion US dollars. And we are seeing that if we push, as it has been highlighted, we have the potential to grow the intra-Commonwealth trade to $2 trillion US dollars by 2030. This is a target that we must really focus on. It will have a serious impact on about 2.5 billion people. So we really must look at that target. I also want to highlight very briefly, and Clare, I think, talked to it, and the other speakers, the issue of connectivity. And I dare suggest that our response as the Commonwealth must be to increase our capacity building connectivity and knowledge transfer programs. This will improve our individual, national, and collective economic outcomes. More effort, therefore, must also be placed in making our education systems fit for purpose in a never-changing, globally competitive context. In Kenya, for instance, we are constantly reviewing our educational system, and we are now introducing a competency-based curriculum so that we can enhance the talents of the young people at a very early stage and be able to help them gear themselves and prepare themselves more effectively for the future that is unfolding very rapidly. There's also the issue of infrastructure connectivity. And in Africa, for instance, for generations, we have had defined intercontinental transport and logistical corridors that are critical to making our trade interventions viable. Our sea and land ports, rail and road infrastructure must effectively spin the trade wheel faster and further. I would therefore urge the Commonwealth to seriously consider an all-encompassing, cohesive infrastructure master plan for moving goods and services between her members and beyond. Therefore, this is something that I think we can develop together. We can support each individual nation within the Commonwealth to have that master plan, and we see how it fits into the bigger whole. That, again, becomes very critical. We also have to look at the value chain connectivity. Merchandising trade accounted for almost 2/3 of the entire trade within the Commonwealth. This begs a question, though: at what stage of the productivity value chain do countries cash in? Our response must be to ensure that a greater portion of the value chain processes happens closer to the centers of production. By doing this, we will secure value chain benefits to millions of small-scale producers, farmers, and workers across the Commonwealth. On this note, I just want to point out that one of the things that we got a ticket for as a government was to propagate what we will do to give access to the small and medium-scale business people and traders in Kenya. So we had what you call the Hustler Fund, targeting the very, very small people. Believe you me, now through technology, without middlemen, what Kenya has done in the last few weeks, launched by the President, is to provide access to credit where a simple trader, the lowest of the lowest, can access about $20, be able to trade with it, turn it around, and we have provided a facility where at a personal level, if you are doing it well, you can borrow up to $500. Now that looks pocket change for most of you here, or it sounds like pocket change, but I can tell you that within the Commonwealth, there's that segment out there. That is where the bulk of the people are, and they must have access to credit to be able to trade and therefore multiply and grow into the bigger traders that we want. So this is something we are pushing. Let me also say that in pushing for better value of products, we need a collective voice to reform the multilateral trading system at the WTO. This reform must attend to the concerns of developing and least developing countries that include food pricing systems, especially in the face of the worst drought that I have referred to. Discussions on public stock, which would address non-trade concerns such as food sovereignty, should be concluded in this conversation. We all know it. We all have challenges, especially around the WTO. Collectively, as the Commonwealth, I think we can leverage and be able to break some of those challenges that face us there. Financial flows connectivity. It is indisputable that economic recovery and sustainable growth will continue to be elusive if we cannot increase financial flows into our countries. Research has now confirmed that foreign direct investment spurs significant changes to economic growth trajectories, drives transfer of technology and skills, creates new jobs, builds productive capacity, and makes domestic firms integrate into international production networks and access foreign markets. We should therefore pay more attention to de-risking our economies, enhancing our fiscal discipline and fiscal reforms, and making an overall attractive environment for investors. Additionally, the Commonwealth must leverage the United Nations Framework Convention and other multilateral frameworks on climate change to tap into the new system of green financing. And I think the Chief Secretary of the Treasury alluded to this as well. Finally, let me come to the conclusion of these remarks by just talking about 3 C's: commonalities, Commonwealth, and Commonwealth. Opportunities abound on our collective histories, common language, common legal structure, a wide geographical spread, and a large population. We must make this count. There is more that binds us than distinguishes us. Our clarion call must be creating Commonwealth and perhaps this was the hidden vision in the forebearers in coining the word Commonwealth. Commonalities, Commonwealth, and Commonwealth. So, as I wind up, let me just say that in Kenya, as we step out of an election, we acknowledge that there are a few challenges. There's very little leg room at the moment when it comes to the physical space. So what do? We are now leveraging heavily on the need to have and accelerate public-private partnerships in various areas, the energy space, infrastructure space, agriculture, and we want to be able to engage meaningfully, quickly, working with you so that you can fill that space and help us grow our Commonwealth together. In Kenya, for instance, we have the largest wind farm in sub-Saharan Africa. Right now, it's generating 300 megawatts. We have a lot of potential on solar. We also have a lot of potential in the geothermal sector. We would also want to invite you to look at us very seriously. And indeed, we do have very solid working relationship with our partners. As I speak here, I think on Wednesday this week, that is the day after tomorrow, the British Foreign Secretary will be in Nairobi, where they are doing a groundbreaking ceremony or event with the President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, in launching what we call the New Railway City, a development program that improves on connectivity of the railway system, and at the same time, developing over 500 hectares of land right in the middle of Nairobi, supported by the United Kingdom's export financing as one of the flagship projects that we shall be pushing forward. So in case you happen to be in Nairobi, we would be most happy if you can be part of that in the next few days. And indeed, that is just one of the programs that Prime Minister Sunak, when he met with President William Ruto in Egypt a few days ago, announced a schedule or a package of a number of programs that they want to work with in Kenya. So this is a destination that you cannot avoid. You have to find your way there. And finally, let me just say that Kenya is resilient. We have challenges, but we've come out of an election unscathed, so to speak. Institutions and democracy is consolidating. Apart from a process where the elections went smoothly, in 2017, just to give you an example, after the general election, Kenya had about 300 election petitions where people were challenging the outcome of the results. In this election, 2022, I think we have barely 30 election petitions of people who may feel aggrieved. So this shows that the electoral process, democracy, is also consolidating. And over and above that, where a loser was aggrieved, they had an opportunity to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the election. So it was a double endorsement. Endorsement from the people and endorsement through the judicial system. Basically, what I'm saying is that as a Commonwealth, for trade to thrive, for us to move forward, then clearly we must also invest deeply and heavily in our governance structures. That should be the anchor as we move ahead. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you best deliberations and warm greetings from the President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. Thank you.
I think thank you all very much. And let the show begin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.